high school, you surround yourself with certain people, your surroundings again. So I had very good friends, but a lot of them smoked weed, which is nothing against that. Sure. But they weren't, they were in the drinking and the hanging out, pretty boy, the girls, all that stuff. But that doesn't really, you kind of stay, and of course, wearing the new Jordans, either Timberlands, those were fresh. The Air Force Ones, the Timberlands, or the Jordans, whites. And if someone step on it, you got a problem. So that was it in the Bronx. But, of course, we played baseball, basketball, I stayed there, but it wasn't everything that I wanted. I knew there was more.
Sure.
And seeing myself, what I was getting into wasn't heading the right way. I'm not saying that I was going to go to prison, but I don't think my life I would have never excelled or came out of my surroundings. And I would have been just stuck in there. So sometimes you're just stuck. And you don't think you have a way out, but there is a way out, And that's what led me more to get out of the Bronx and say, I have to venture off. I have to get out of my parents' house. I have to do my own thing.
Is that the time frame that you switched to the military?
Yes. At that time, I remember my brother-in-law was opening up multiple stores, and he wanted me to help him run it since I was already there. And that was kind of like his dream. And he started a tax company, and he wanted me to stay with him there. But unfortunately, I came to him with the news, and I was like, man, after 9/11, I was in school when it happened. And actually, I believe it was math class or social studies, and the first plane hit, and from the window we can see
You're kidding me.
Manhattan from a distance, because we were in Hutchinson River Parkway, which is right by the water, and if you go to the top third deck, which we can see out, and we can see the smoke from far away, but it's playing on the news, and they told the seniors first, so that no one would be scared, I guess, the lower, and they turn on the news, and as it's happening, we're looking out, and it's chaos. Couldn't get out of school. They did lockdown of New York. It was, the only reason I got out was because my sister was working with the police program, and there was a detective that they called my parents, and he was like, okay, we'll get them out. We'll go to the school, because no one was authorized to go anywhere.
Wow.
After, during those days, all the businesses closed down. You saw all the ashes. I mean, it covered all of us. A lot of chaos. From there, something felt inside, a duty I felt like a calling, and I wanted to go into infantry and go to war. I don't know why was that a calling at that time, and I said, I got to do something, and I was actually going to join the Army. And when I was walking up the first office, there was a sergeant coming out, Sergeant Hernandez, and he was a Marine. He said, hey, where are you going? I was like, hey, I'm joining the Army. He was like, well, their office is closed. Have you ever thought about joining the Marines? And I said, no. And he says, you want to be best of the best? And I said, okay, yes. That's it. That's the words that it took me. He took me in the office, and I signed up. And then I graduated in June, and I was in boot camp in October.
What businesses did you pursue so far? Because I know you're currently in the restaurant business.
Yes.
But before that, what kind of other busineses after the cell phone sales? Right?
Yeah, so the cell phone sales after that, when I got out of the military, I opened up a restaurant and a tax office with my sister in Florida. And then I opened up a restaurant in Florida. But you got to remember, this was 2012, 2013. The market wasn't so good, because remember, the drop was 2008. So it was just like barely. And I think I learned the lesson, because I will never say it's a failure, because it's a lesson of lack of knowledge. And what I mean lack of knowledge is learning the basics of business as no one ever taught us. Okay? And I learned it the hard way. And it was because when I bought the business, the books were cooked. If I would have had a really good CPA, I could have maybe saved my restaurant, maybe sold it right when I knew that I was bleeding and I lost everything. And when I mean everything, you can name it: eviction, repos, everything, credit score, 400, because of a lack of knowledge that we don't know. It can hurt us. It can impact us. It's not taught in school. It's not taught in school, yeah. And yeah, I was a Marine. I was 27. I was motivated. That's all I knew. I was motivated. I was disciplined. Make it happen, But I saved all my hard money so it can be gone in like 8 months, and then I had nothing. Unfortunately, the business, of course, the tax center that we opened up, we closed that as well because it wasn't the timing. Everything is timing, right? And once that, I pursued taxes, which I went back to New York with my brother-in-law, and he taught me the business. And I remember my brother-in-law saying this. He's like, I'm gonna teach you something. And the most business that you're gonna make money out of, it's not an item. It's gonna be you, a computer, and a printer. And I go, what are you talking about? He's like, that's gonna change your life. So he taught me taxes. And it's true. Because there's no overhead. It's your knowledge, the software, and your printer. Before it used to print, now it's electronic, so it's even easier now. So I did that, and I opened up. I came back to California. I was in Florida. I came back to California, and I basically signed up for college to pursue my bachelor's it was in marketing, and then I switched to accounting, concentration in accounting. Why? Because I said, you know what, if I learn the language of business, which is accounting, then that won't happen to me, and I can help people in the sense of numbers that won't happen to them. So that was kind of like my goal and my discipline. I was disciplined to do it. So I went to college while I was opening up my tax office, and it was successful. I went knocking doors on the restaurants. I became their accountants. I started doing, journal entries, accounting, bookkeeping. From there, I learned business formation, and then that's how I grew my business. I got a partner, then a bookkeeper, and then that's how I grew it. And ran solid for 5-6 years of that. After that, business is always up and down. And then after that, I pursued the Bitcoin era came in. Sure. And then from Bitcoin era, I jumped into, right after, it was my first restaurant, which he was my client at first. That's how I got into the restaurant industry. So my first pizzeria.
Got it.
The first pizzeria was in Murrieta, California. And it was with, he's my partner now in the one in Newport Beach. But basically, he was my client. I was his accountant. And he was already in the business. He's been in the business for 30 years. He'd had that shop for about 13 years. And he was kind of tired. And we were sitting down once, and he's like, hey, I'm thinking of selling. And I said, you know what? I was like, I'll buy it. And he's like, come on. I was like, yeah, I'll buy it one day. And then, conversation didn't struck. But at that time, the opportunity arose. Is everything is timing. And I remember I had the money either to buy a house, but then if I buy a house, I still have to hustle hard at the tax office.
Yeah.
So then I was like, let me take the money and buy this restaurant. So I bought the restaurant from him in 2018. I got it. It was my first restaurant. And that's how it all started with the pizza business. The pizza business was a side investment that I did. And it went very, very well, from 2018 to right before COVID. And then from there, that one led into my second pizzeria, my third. But then my goal was to open 5 or 6 or maybe 10. And then, of course, sell. That's the exit strategy for everybody. And unfortunately, COVID hit and the tax office, died down because I couldn't pay attention to it. My biggest assets were the restaurants. So I had to dive into the restaurants. So I had to physically, and when I say dive in physically, I had to put over 80 hours of work in those restaurants.
Just in rotation.
Just rotation. I was being drained in rotation. And we're talking about manual labor to do. If you ever did a pizza, it's fun and games to do one. But try to do 150 of them. Your hands, your knuckles, your wrists, they hurt your knees. Yeah. You really feel it. And especially, being by the stove is hot. You're doing wings. I mean, you're multitasking. And I had to do that. And during COVID, we skimmed down to like 3 people. And it was just me, a front, and a cook. And I had to be all over the place. It was rough, And at that point, I said, I can't do this anymore, man. I have to get out of this. Unfortunately, I had to sell the Laguna Niguel location. And then also the Murrieta location, I believe it a couple of years ago. And the reason is because, sales dropped, employees were really hard to find. Sure. And honestly, man, my income was dropping. Honestly, I thought I was going to lose everything.